It's Carmen and Jurko out to the Corona Hotline. We say hello to the Cubs Vice President of Baseball Ops, Jed Hoyer, joins the program now on ESPN 1000 and the ESPN Chicago app. Jed, hello. Thank you as always for the time. How are you?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
We're doing okay. You know, you never want to lose opening day. I get it, but 1 out of 162. Did it just feel good to be back in the park and actually see people in the stands yesterday?
It did, yeah. We had, we played with fans in Arizona, so we got a little taste of that, but definitely not the same as having fans in Wrigley. And I thought that the fans were great. I mean, it was freezing out there, and we certainly didn't do anything to entertain them. And so I thought they were amazing. They were there at the end, and yeah, it was really nice to see people there. And hopefully that number just keeps growing as we go.
Absolutely. Do you follow what's going on in Washington? Like, do you get nervous? Do you remind the guys about the importance of trying to stay like as safe and responsible as possible?
I do, yeah. I mean, listen, I think that we've been exceptionally careful, but I'm not naive enough not to think that there's a little bit of luck involved, and sometimes these things happen because you're careless, and sometimes these things could happen, because you have some bad luck. And I don't know the situation, in Washington, but yeah, obviously I'm hoping that gets resolved and they can get back to playing because, and it probably is a good reminder to your point. I thought for us, we had a player who we'd already sent to minor league camp that tested positive, and we had some to go through that close contact drill and have some guys sit out for a bit. And it was a wake up call for us, and I think sometimes we might need that.
So Jed, most of the pundits don't believe that the NL Central is going to be all that good, and that it could kind of be wide open. Does that make your job as you sit in your seat now a little bit harder as the summer goes on?
Well, I do think that, listen, I've read all the same stuff, and I do think it's going to be a very competitive division. And, I think ultimately, I think that's the hardest decisions you ever have to make are those decisions when it's in the margin as far as which way to go. And, obviously, I really want to be a buyer at the deadline, to be aggressive. I think that's always the much better, not only feeling, but the better position to be in. And so hopefully we're there. But yeah, that is where it becomes difficult, and I think, I always feel like there is a feeling you have about your team, about the vibe, about the competitiveness, and hopefully we'll be able to know kind of where we are. And sometimes that's based on exactly where we are in the standings, and sometimes it's kind of based on how you're actually playing and what that bodes for future, when you get into the playoffs.
14 out of your 26 right now are in their walk year. That seems like an unusually high. Like, have you ever experienced anything like that in all your years with different teams?
No, actually, the season I would say that I remember that we had probably the most was actually 2004 for the Red Sox. I think it was, it was very interesting in that we had 2003 was just the most fun season. It reminds me a lot of 2015, and just we were not expected to be that good, and we ended up losing in Game 7 of the ALCS, and then in 2004 we were expected to be very, very good, but we had all those guys in walk years, Pedro and Derek Lowe and Nomar and Veritek, and so I don't know what the exact number was that year, but we had the kind of the core of our team was all free agents. So this feels a lot like that in a lot of ways, and yeah, I mean that's a huge number, and I'm sure that's the highest number of walk year guys I've been around.
You talked about 2003 being that fun year, and 2015 was obviously a fun year. Where's the fun gone?
Well, I think that it's interesting you say that, and I think that the White Sox sort of had that last year to a certain extent. I think whenever you arrive a year early, that's the fun year. I think for every sports team, and really for fans too, right? That when fans or us in our jobs, when we expect to win. It is, it does take away that fun. You're stressed out. You feel like you should be, at the top. Whereas that when you surprise people, I think that's always those wild rides. And, I wasn't here for, 84, 89 or 98, but they might've been similar where I think when expectations are really high, it doesn't mean it's not fun, but there's more stress. When there's no expectations, I think that creates those kind of wild ride summers and falls where you're playing with house money.
Jed Hoyer joins us on ESPN 1000. It's Carmen and Jurko. We talk in terms of these windows. Is that a fan thing, or do you guys talk about it in those terms? And has that, that window that opened in 15, maybe you're early, and all that great success that you guys went on to had, has that window like officially closed?
Yeah, I think I don't know necessarily you talk about it in terms of windows, but you definitely talk about it in terms of player service times, and we happen to bring all these guys up at the same time, which created that. So sometimes it's not quite as defined as we have it, but we brought these guys to the big leagues in 14 and 15, and now we're getting towards the end of that, and we've only been able to extend a few guys. So that does lead to this situation where you end up with all these guys at the end. So. I don't want to talk about it in terms of a window, but certainly, we do talk about it in terms of our player service time and how long we control, that first part of their career.
Does it at all chap your ass when you see DJ LeMahieu or Soler, who had a ton of success last year in Kansas City? Does it at all frustrate you that they couldn't fire when they were here and they decided to fire elsewhere?
Well, in the case of DJ LeMahieu, we just made a bad decision. I mean, that was a bad trade. I think it's good lesson. We came in here, the scouting reports we had when I was in San Diego or Theo had in Boston, we liked him as a player, but thought he was the kind of player we should move in that deal. And I think, had we been here longer and sort of gotten to know him and his skill set, maybe we don't make that decision. So that's just like I said, that one's a bad decision. I think with Soler, there was, I feel when Wade Davis, came in here, in a year that we thought we had a chance to, go back to back, and Wade Davis was awesome for us, and we ended up getting a draft pick. So I don't look at that decision that way in any way, but certainly, I mean, listen, I think, one of the things we always talk about is, you have to be willing to make transactions, and sometimes you're going to have, you're going to trade Feldman for Arrieta and Strop, or you're going to trade, Cashner for Rizzo, and sometimes you're going to trade DJ LeMahieu for Ian Stewart. And I think one of the things you want to be on the good side of that ledger, a lot more than you're on the bad side. But you can't be afraid to be on the bad side, because that's when you don't make transactions. And if you don't make transactions, I think it's really difficult to be a great organization. So, we talk about that's kind of the kind of thing that people talk about in the industry is there are teams that don't make mistakes, but as a result, they don't make a lot of great decisions either. And you can't be afraid to transact. You can't be afraid to make mistakes because, there's a lot of good deals on the side of being aggressive.
Jed, I mean, you've obviously had your fingerprints all over this organization, but now with Theo gone in the chair in which you sit, and you've had a little time to kind of assess and formulate your plan. And I get your job's fluid. I get it. You explain that about how you play and divisions go and things like that. But what is your vision for being great again, or getting this franchise back to where you guys got it going into 2015?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a big part of our success, or the crux of our success, when you look back to 2015, 16, was the farm system that we created from 12 to 14, and we always talk about, we were talking earlier about the fun summer of 15, but, a lot of ways, I've always told people the real fun for us was in the middle of the summer of 14. We almost kind of felt like we were in on a secret, wow, we're going to be really good. These guys in the minor leagues are excellent, and we're on the right path. And I think getting back to that place where we have just a ton of talent at the upper levels about ready to contribute. And, this is a young person's game, and it's only trending younger. When you look at, the velocity in the game right now, I just think that is the way the game is going. And we need to be able to get back to a place where we feel like we're just churning out, prospect after prospect. And, last time we had the ability to we were picking at the top of the draft. We ended up with guys before we got here, they, great pick with Javi, but, Javi, Bryant, Schwarber, Happ, all these guys were at the top of the draft. I don't think we're going to be there, and so I think we have to do an excellent job of player development. So to me, that's sort of the vision is, we have to get back to that place. I don't think we ever got away from it philosophically, but certainly we traded out of our farm system a lot in order to fuel what we thought was a really excellent chance to win. And we did. We won in the playoffs 5 out of 6 years, and been to the NLCS, 3 times, won a bunch of divisions. So I think it's been really successful, but it came at a cost of trading a lot of young players. And I do feel like we need to get back to really being a young athletic team that's bringing a lot of pitching and a lot of hitting out of the farm system.
It's a young man's game. You said it. Is that why you guys are at a crossroads right now with Rizzo's contract?
I mean, listen, I'm very uncomfortable talking about contract stuff publicly. I know that one leaked out, and listen, I've known Riz since he was 17, and we've talked about this topic in person. It's not like we have to do this all the time through agents. We can sit down and have a talk in the backyard because of that relationship, and I really want him to come back. I really want him to be here for a long time. But obviously I do feel like, the right thing, I have to, think about this organization as well. And, those things haven't aligned yet perfectly. I'm certainly hopeful. And, as I said the other day, very confident they will align. So I don't want to talk about any rationale, reason, anything like that. But I will say, I really want him back here for a long time. And, he's an incredible ambassador for this team, in this city, in the game in general. And I think he's got a lot of good years of baseball ahead of him. So that is certainly my hope, is that we can bring him back. Those things just haven't quite aligned yet.
Riz said earlier this week, Jed, that, in his mind it was, okay, no more negotiating. But, I mean, could it still could you still talk to his representation and get something done?
I don't want to speculate on that because that wouldn't be sort of honoring his deadline. I mean, as I said the other day, our door is open, and he knows that. We don't have a deadline. I'm perfectly willing to talk or negotiate anytime. I don't have to go out and hit a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. So I can do that anytime. But I totally respect his desire not to be distracted. So that's on him and his representatives, and I respect it. But our door would be open.
Is the stance the same with Javi?
With all these guys, I have no issue whatsoever talking in season. But I understand their desire not to have their heads filled with information or thinking about it, and it's hard. I mean, there's real, I think that obviously there's plenty of success stories with guys that going out and having really good contract years, but I don't pretend to think that it's easy to do that, right? I think that there's a level of uncertainty and a level of pressure that's a little bit different, and I respect it. I understand it's got to be difficult, and I understand why guys don't want their heads filled with thoughts about money, while they're trying to play.
Mm-hmm. Can a team rebuild it without bottoming out?
I think it can, but I think it has to be creative. And I really do hope in our next CBA. I do hope that I think baseball unfortunately has that's been a trend, and we, I don't want to say we started it, but we were pretty close to the start, if not when we did that, and Houston had success, and I think that's created a little bit of a copycat thing where people can kind of bottom out for a bit and then go back up, and I don't think that's good for fan bases, and it's not a great thing. It leads to some pretty miserable summers. So I think it can be done, but I also think there has to come with really good player development and really good draft picks to be able to to succeed without some guys near the top of the draft. Because, I mean, listen, you look at the guys that we've had a lot of success with. I mean, you look around the field oftentimes and it's, really high picks, and you go back to when we won in 16 and look around. I mean, Hayward was a top half of the first round pick. Addison Russell was top half of the first round pick. Obviously you look around the Schwarbers and Baez and Bryants and all those guys, and so there's a lot of success in the top half of the first round. And, when you're not picking there, that means you have to do some really good work in the lower rounds.
Last thing before we let you go, is that job even harder if you don't have the same financial resources that you once had?
Well, I think we'll get back there. Listen, I think we went over the luxury tax the previous 2 years. And I think obviously, we had to tighten our belt this year with COVID. A lot of teams did. And, we'll get past that. I think, everyone, as we talked about at the beginning of this interview, that, we have fans in the stands now. We're going to have hopefully more as the summer goes on, and hopefully soon enough, Wrigley's full again. And so I think that will make a huge difference. And we'll get back to where we were. We have to, like I said, tighten our belt a bit now, like a lot of teams do. But I have no doubt we'll be back up by that luxury tax threshold soon enough.
Jed, thanks for the honesty as always. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys, take care.
Thank you. There's Jed Hoyer, the executive vice president of the Chicago Cubs. We got to